When you look at the matchup that I'm really keeping an eye on is that Iowa defensive line with those stars that they brought back, Herkett and Llewellyn and Graves, going up against that Indiana offensive line that really put in some work against Illinois. So how do you see that matchup playing out? Because I think a lot of Iowa fans feel really good about those guys up front being able to put some work in. But Indiana's O-line was really impressive on Saturday.
Yeah, you should feel confident. Aaron Graves and Max Llewellyn, hell of good players right there. Iowa always brings it on their front seven. Past 10 years, that's why they haven't lost less than 8 games in a full season in a decade. That's their bread and butter right there, is that front seven and that defense, and everything else kind of goes from there. When it comes to our offensive line, we brought in, the metrics are backing us up here. We had a Joe Moore Award nominated O-line last year. We revamped it with 3 guys from the portal. They're looking the part this year as, 4 straight games with 300 rushing yards. So we're feeling good as well. It's almost like, a rock in a hard place, right? It's like an unmovable object meets, it's Goliath versus Goliath. And that is going to be the key matchup. And, who that you can almost argue wash. It's where Indiana probably outmatches Iowa in other aspects of the game, which is probably going to be the separator. But yeah, that matchup is a matchup even as good as Indiana is on that O-line, where Iowa could win that matchup and really change the game and make it a slugfest for 4 quarters. There's no doubt about it.
Iowa's also been a little bit underwhelming.
Oh yeah,
on the defensive line at times this year. So
but,
as great as you,
yeah,
I know, but as great as you
team.
I'm just being objective. As great as you just touted those 3 guys, and I like them all. Zach, you know this because you follow Iowa too. Like, there have been games, especially, first week or 2, you could argue Iowa really didn't pressure
Iowa State game, especially
like they should
was bad. Yep.
So they need to be. This team to be as good defensively as I think the potential says it can be. Yeah, they got to be able to get home a couple of times and to just disrupt Mendoza and the rhythm. They got to do to Mendoza what Indiana's defensive line did to Altmaier. That's an experienced quarterback in Luke Altmaier, who I thought got a little bit frazzled Saturday. And that happens on the road in that type of environment. And it looked like an unbelievable environment. I wasn't there, but it looked like an unbelievable environment. And we haven't seen a lot of that. Maybe you guys saw it last year. I didn't watch a ton of Indiana football.
Not like that, dude. Not like that. In terms of environment, that was the most impressive environment I've ever seen. And just to kind of close loop in or finish up the conversation about defensive line, offensive line, Illinois was able to have a little bit of success stopping the run against Indiana. But what Indiana does so well and what Fernando Mendoza was able to do so well, he was operating the RPO game he was operating at a higher level than Rourke did last year. At one point, he completed 15 straight passes. And I know that part of that was Illinois' lack of guys in the secondary. They had to play a lot of off coverage, but it becomes really hard to defend that team when you're selling out against the run, and he can just pick his matchup on the outside. And so if Iowa is able to have success, especially with their defensive line, disrupting a lot of what Indiana tries to do in the RPO game, we haven't seen really what Indiana looks like completely off schedule. We saw, again, I'll reference it again, a little bit in the ODU game with what they were doing with their defensive front, and we know that Iowa is a better front than they do. So
I think the big concern for me at least, and a lot of Iowa fans is if that D-line isn't getting pressure, if they're not forcing the quarterback off his first read, off his spot, those linebackers in that secondary we've seen be a bit shaky this season, especially first half against Rutgers. Iowa was not getting any pressure. Ethan Kaliak-Manis, literally able to do whatever he wanted, throwing the ball, and those Rutgers receivers are fantastic. It's no doubt about that. But Iowa's defense got diced up when he had time to throw, and I think we saw it in the second half when Iowa's defensive line got pressure. They started hitting Kaliak-Manis. They really threw him off their game, off their rhythm. And so I think the biggest concern for Iowa fans is what are you going to get from these linebackers in secondary, because we've seen some great play out of guys like TJ Hall on the outside, and Zach Lutmer in that second half against Rutgers was played well, but we've seen some growing pains for Carson Shire, Jaden Harrell in their first real big starting roles on this Iowa defense. So at least for me, that's what I'm worried about. And Deshaun Lee on the outside too. He had a tough game against Ian Strong and KJ Duff and those Rutgers receivers. And I tell you what, one matchup I do not want to see is Elijah Surratt on Deshaun Lee. I do not want to see Lee in that matchup. I think Fernando Mendoza is throwing the ball to just around 90% of the time if he sees Deshaun Lee on him single covered. And so I'm worried about that with the Iowa secondary, just with how up and down they've been this season.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say with Indiana's offense, it's also pick your poison. I hate when people only bring up Surratt because I think Omar Cooper is just as good. He's a hell of a player. Guys can't tackle him. He gets open. He makes plays. He scores touchdowns.
And recruiting ranking wise, EJ Williams is technically the best out of all of those guys. He was a 4-star coming out, was a part of that, like Clemson's college football playoff teams in 2021. They got a ton of talent in that room. And to Brad's point, like you pick your poison and you're like, okay, cool. Like, how do we stop Surratt? How do we stop these receivers? And maybe we double some guys. All of a sudden you pull 8 guys out of the box and Indiana's running the ball. This is one of the best rushing attacks in the nation. And I know, again, we can discount the first 3 weeks, but to run for 300 yards, even against an Illinois team that largely gave up in the second half, is still a really impressive feat. And so part of the reason why I feel like the line is skyrocketed like that, where it opened at 5.5 and now it's up over 7.5, is if you start going, well, what happens if Iowa can't get home? And what happens if Iowa struggles to cover? Indiana's going to execute. Like, if you don't hit Mendoza and mess that guy up, he's going to put the ball where it needs to be. And so it then goes to the other side of okay, what can Iowa's offense do against Indiana's defense? We know Indiana's stout against the run. We know they're great against the pass, with the exception of they've had a couple miscommunications in the secondary.
Have been a little iffy at times. So if they're able to get it over the top on Indiana, that's probably one of their biggest vulnerabilities right now.
But from what you guys have been telling me, the pass offense has been iffy. And from what I've seen, the pass offense has been iffy. And you're already down the starting running back isn't going to play this week. The tight end, I think, was questionable, or I can't remember what Corey was saying about that. But if Iowa becomes one-dimensional and Gronowski's not a Blazer, that's going to become tough for them to move the ball on offense too. But I had some questions about Gronowski, actually, and I hope you guys can fill me in here, because I feel like from afar, regardless of what the stats say, the team really likes him. The kid's gritty. He's a gamer. That story about him and his brother that played before the Iowa State game, I thought was brings the country. You just want to root for that guy. It's like, do the Iowa fans feel that way, or is that just something that I kind of caught from farther away?
Zach, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'll take that, Corey. I think there was a lot of excitement and hype around Mark Gronowski before the season, and then he just had that just dreadful debut versus Albany, 44 passing yards, and I mean, gosh, the panic in the fan base after that game. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it that bad after a single game before. I mean, people were calling him a bust. People were saying that he was just not going to be good at all for Iowa. And I tried to slow everyone down and say it's one game. And then he didn't play very well against Iowa State, although I think the scheme and the play calling in that game wasn't great. It didn't really favor him, but there was a lot of concern, and he's really put it together these last couple of games. I mean, you see just the confidence and the swagger that he plays with in that Rutgers game. He was running it into the end zone. He was taunting the student section. He was putting the hand up on the ear. I mean, he's someone who's got some swagger. And I think this Iowa team really feeds off of that when he's playing well. And he hasn't been helped by his receivers. The drops have been just awful this year. There have been so many drops by these receivers. There's one by Sam Phillips on the first drive against Rutgers last week on a third down, about 25, 30 yards down the field. It was a dot from Gronowski, and Phillips just dropped it. And, it's been a big issue with those this year. So Iowa's got to clean that up to help out their quarterback. And he's missed a couple of throws. He had a tight end for a touchdown against Rutgers, and he bounced it in the dirt on a play action. And so, it's some of those throws, make the routine plays routinely if you're Mark Gronowski. But, I mean, there's no doubt that he's brought some life to this team and some juice. And he's easily the best quarterback to play at Iowa in at least 4 years. And you can make a legitimate argument he's the best quarterback to play here since Nate Stanley in 2019. Just what he's able to do, being a dual threat, his ability to run the ball, keep the defense honest there. And then we're seeing Iowa start to air it out a bit more through the year. Obviously, no Reese Vanderzee is annoying to not have in a game like this, but I really would look for a guy like Dayton Howard if you're looking for an under-the-radar kind of receiver to keep an eye on in this game. 6'5", receiver for Iowa, a sophomore. He had a 42-yard grab last week, and I think he's someone that Iowa should really try and prioritize to get on the field because he's someone that I think could just be a game changer if he gets more targets.
And real quick, just to establish, you asked about Gronowski, and Zach brought up fans wanting him benched after the first or second games. So at Kids Day, the open practice, August, whatever it was, I remember en route to our post-game destination, I remember reading a couple of comments on social media, basically asking Corey, should there be an open competition at quarterback? Is this job in question? And I remember looking at my phone like, what am I missing here? So my point is, the reality is fans wanted Stanzi benched in 2009. They wanted Stanley benched 2018 Iowa State. I remember that game vividly. They wanted Rudock benched. They got it. They wanted, I don't know about Beathard, but they wanted Stanley benched at times, or excuse me, not Stanley, Petrus. They wanted McNamara benched. So that's just par for the course with reactionary fans. He's been better every week. I think he's, I think the biggest frustration right now for me is that Iowa only gets him for 1 year. So that's my biggest frustration. But yeah, I'm not concerned about his toughness on Saturday. I am concerned long term with his ability to carry the ball as much as he is. And I haven't studied the numbers from South Dakota State as far as number of carries, volume. But he carried the ball a lot on Saturday. But he's done that basically every week, and that's eventually going to take its toll.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really impressed me about.
Well, hold on, real quick. I was going to say Gronowski is leading Iowa in carries right now.
Yeah, I mean that's hard to sustain, but he's a tough guy. He runs like a tight end. Brad?
Yeah, that was one thing that really impressed me with Gronowski is his ability to, get it done with his legs, be a little gritty, get a first down when he needs to. That's something that Indiana historically hasn't done great with, is the mobile quarterback. Kennesaw State was able to move the ball with a shifty guy at quarterback. Colton Joseph, first play of the game of this year. Even Jack Lausch at Northwestern last year was able to get some momentum for Northwestern at that game over at the stadium that I'm looking at right now. And I think that's something that Iowa should probably look into in terms of being able to potentially move the ball. Is getting Gronowski moving on the run.
Yeah, they don't got to look into it. They're going to do that.
Yeah,
Phil Parker, they don't think about the struggles against the passing game last week. I just want to remind everybody, against a very comparable schedule prior to last week. Okay, Rutgers had a very comparable schedule through 3 games compared to Indiana. Like, you want to tout up Old Dominion, I'll tout up Ohio. Like, those are, I think if those two teams played, I'd probably take Ohio. No, Ohio beat.
But it's
It'd be a good game. I'd watch it.
Ohio beat West.
I'd definitely watch that one.
Ohio beat West Virginia, Alec. So
we did.
Who's better, West Virginia or Virginia Tech? I mean,
well, who's better, Indiana or Rutgers?
Before last week, I don't know that I would have been able to say definitively before last week.
That's the problem.
Corey, that's
Neither
crazy.
team had a resume.
No, that's crazy, dude. Football is played by football players, dude. Come on,
so many guys
had a
for a
resume.
playoff team last year.
Corey,
this is the issue. We're
That's
not talking
nuts,
about
dude.
last year. We're not talking about last.
I'm not talking about last year.
And by the way,
watch this team play football, dude. That's nuts.
We can still talk. I have watched them play football, but we can still talk all we want about if they played. Do they play this year? Does Rutgers play Illinois or Indiana this year?
No, they don't.
Okay, then we don't know who we won't really know what would happen in that game unless they played, right? So
That's
when Indiana,
that's fair.
Listen, when Indiana and Rutgers make it to the college football playoff and play each other in a national title game, we'll know, right? At that point, we'll know, and one of those two red teams will be a winner. But
do you know how happy my heart would be, Corey?
Oh, that's fine. My reason I bring up Rutgers is prior to last week, both teams had a comparable resume, whether you agree with that or not. The numbers say they do. The teams they played were very comparable. And Ethan Kaliakmanis, I warned everybody last week, the guy was throwing 73% through the air, very similar to Mendoza before last week. Now, Mendoza was unbelievably good against Illinois, but I'm simply saying, like, they did have a very proficient and efficient quarterback on the other side of the field, other side of that line last week in Piscataway.
They weren't running for 300 yards behind that.
I'm not saying they were. But I'm talking about the efficiency when you give him time to throw. And we saw in the first quarter, he was efficient. And then Iowa figured out a way to get home. You're right. The missing element was Rutgers could not run the ball effectively. So early on, it looked like Rutgers had no interest in running because all they had to do was throw the ball downfield. And one of their three great wide receivers to go up and get it. But in reality, part of that may have been they knew they really couldn't run against that Iowa defensive front. Now, the flip side is we assume Indiana, because they ran well against Illinois and they've looked good against those other three subpar opponents, we assume they're going to be able to run effectively against Iowa's front four and against those linebackers. But we don't know that. We don't know it until it happens on Saturday. I think field position is going to be a big storyline. Can Iowa pin them back in that north end zone? I saw Indiana. They dominated field position on Saturday. I think the one concerning thing, if I'm looking at Iowa in this game, is the fact that Indiana dominated Illinois in spite of the fact that Illinois in general protected the football. I think it was 1-0 turnover wise. Like, it was a clean game played there.
Quarter pick too.
Yeah, well, there you go. And I didn't know that. So thank you. And penalties. Illinois wasn't penalized. And they still put a butt whooping on them. So that would be my concern if I'm Iowa. Like, you can win on turnovers, you can win on penalties, and the numbers based on what we saw last week against a comparable team in Illinois are that maybe that doesn't matter. You're going to have to beat them in other ways. And I don't know where that comes from. Certainly special teams, you got to win that battle.
Reaching.
Well, I was going to say, in terms of, like, I thought it was funny you mentioned average field position or field position, because that was something I noted. Taylor from Bite Size Bison is an awesome Indiana creator. He's been on a couple of different beats across the Big Ten. He puts out he compiles like the analytics and all that stuff. Indiana's average field position is 25th in the country. Iowa's is 83rd. So that would be another area of concern for Iowa. If they find themselves behind their own 20 consistently and can't get out from behind, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and that's how Kirk has won games for years. But even before Lester was, they won 10 games with horrible offense because they controlled the field. They'd strike on a big play. They get a big turnover. They haven't done Iowa has not done a great job of forcing turnovers. And it's not like Fernando Mendoza is turnover prone, right? Zach, would you agree with that? Like, Iowa has not done a good job forcing turnovers this year.
It's just it's one interception in 4 games.
Yeah, and it was a
great
interception.
It was great,
play.
but
they needed it, but they haven't done it well.
I was going to say one interception, 1 fumble, 0 on the turnover differential for the year. Indiana has fumbled, I think, 3 or 4 times, lost 1, and Mendoza hasn't thrown a pick yet.
Yeah. So, and I don't believe Gronowski, his one pick that he threw was the one against Iowa State, and it hurt him. But I'm
guessing that was Old Dominion forcing those fumbles.
Right?
Yeah, it was actually.
One would have to assume. One would have to.
There was a weird one against Indiana State that just bopped out for 10 yards and went for a first down in the red zone.
Real quick, did Indiana play Western Illinois this year, or was that Illinois that played?
We got Indiana.
That was Illinois.
But you played Western Illinois last year, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's. And I'll just say this: shame on both schools for playing the Leathernecks. No, shame on both schools.
Shout out to the Leathernecks.
What a disgraceful
They made a bunch
schedule.
of money.
What a disgraceful schedule. I mean,
good for the Leathernecks.
Same for Iowa for playing Albany. Shame on them. But really, shame on Illinois and Indiana for playing Western Illinois. That's an unbelievably bad program, and it's sad to see how that program has gone downhill.
I remember doing.
I want to address a comment in the chat real quick that says we think we're going to run for 300 yards on Iowa. No, relax. I'm saying we think we can run the ball. We can run the ball. It doesn't have to be for 300 yards. Like, let's not get running for 300 yards. And there were some things in the chat going where like people were disrespecting Kinnick Stadium. Like, no, let's not do that. Let's not get crazy. Like, let's all keep our heads here, fellas. Like,
I think there's a chance we might have to throw the ball a lot. I think there's a chance it becomes a game like that where it has to fall into Mendoza's hands and he has to win the game for us.
I also think having an extra day. Now I know Iowa had to travel back from Rutgers, but having that extra day for Phil Parker to kind of mull over this, as opposed to a short week, right? There's a big difference
100%.
between having 6 days versus 8. So, I think that will help because Phil Parker, if he's what I think Mark and I both believe he's one of the best, and I think we know he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. He may be the best. If anybody's going to figure out a way to like fix the issues we saw last week for Iowa early against Rutgers and tailor them to what Indiana has shown and how dominant they've been to this point, it's probably Phil Parker, who may be the best DC in the country and the best DBs coach in the country. So
let me ask each group, meaning Corey and Zach, and then Alec and Brad, to rank or rate on a scale of 1 to 10 offense, defense, and special teams for your team. And I think this is going to outline why Indiana's a 7.5 point favorite. Okay, Corey and Zach, Iowa's offense on a scale of 1 to 10.
Collectively,
like 10 is the best Best offense in the country.
I'd give him a 5. I think
Five.
they're very
I was
average.
thinking 5, maybe 6 on a good day, but
Yeah, they're average.
Right now, it's a 5.
Average is good for Iowa. Average is
Yeah.
what you really need for them to be successful. Now, maybe not Saturday, but 5.
Defense.
8. Or
I'd go
7.
closer to 7. Yeah.
Yeah, 7, 8. I mean, they just haven't forced the turnovers this year that we're so used to, and that secondary's
And
been
they
a
were
bit shaky.
Exactly. They were susceptible to the pass.
Special teams.
9.
I was going 7 or 8. I wanted to talk about Drew Stevens. Maybe some concern there. He's missed field goals in back-to-back weeks from both of them within 45 yards. I think we've seen him hit ones from over 50 this year, but maybe a bit concerned about some inconsistency there from inside 40, 45 yards, missed an extra point as well, and so a bit concerned there. But the rest of that is elite, and Caden Wheaton's the best returner in the country.
I was going to say, he, just for the record, Stevens, so I understand why you say that, Zach. There was a bit of there have been some snafus with snaps so far on those field goal tries.
Yep.
And I had the numbers here. So he is, during his career at Iowa, 61 of 76 on his career field goals made. And I believe, if you look at the numbers, that would be just actually less. If you just take less than 50, he's 51 of 64, which is 84%. And if you take away blocked field goals, he's 51 of 57. That's 89%. Nate, to put that in perspective, Nate Kading, who many people consider to be one of the best kickers to ever play at Iowa, he was 67 of 83 overall, 80.7%, and 5 of 13 of 50 plus. I guess. And Shudak, 84%, Keith Duncan, 82.5. So he's right up in there. I'm not concerned about it. Now, if he really starts spraying kicks, I think the bigger concern I have is snaps.
Yeah.
But he has had, I mean, to your point, Zach, a couple of years ago, he had that one game against Nebraska where it just kind of came out from under him. The floor kind of came out from under him. But I would still give special teams a 9 because you're the best return guy in the country in Caden Weegan. Mm-hmm. You have one of the best kickers in the country. And I don't know that Reese Dakin's been great, but they haven't needed him to be as great because they've moved the ball more this year. So,
yeah. You better believe Indiana's got Wheatgen circled. That guy is Signetti gushed about him for about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would imagine they won't kick his way at all. But
I said that that's something to note.
If we kick his way, it's a mistake. Oh, he said we have our backup punter playing.
Oh, okay, that's not good. That's not good.
He started 3 straight games, but yeah, no, it's not great.
But they did they punt at all last week?
We haven't had to use them too much, but
yeah, I think he punted once or twice.
Ball, pick it up and punt it out.
That might be the underrated storyline of this, and I mean that seriously. I mean,
no, you're right. You got to look for advantages.
Game last year.
We're talking about field position against Iowa. Mm-hmm. Indiana has a backup punter coming in. That's seriously. I mean, imagine one bad blocked punt. Or one snafu where he accidentally kicks to Weege and he takes it to the house. Mm-hmm. Rutgers they had no business coming back the way they did after taking that extra, allowing Weege to go 104 yards. Normally, a play like that is, a dagger. I mean, special teams and defensive touchdowns are usually killers in Big Ten games, and Iowa still won, so maybe you could say it was, but that's a storyline, an underrated one.
No, 100%. And I know we don't like to go back to last year and use recent history, but Indiana went into Ohio State with their all Big Ten punter, and he dropped one and kicked one the wrong direction in the other, and it cost him 14 points.
He kicked it the wrong direction?
Yeah, on the Caleb Downs return, he was supposed to kick it right, and he kicked it left.
Oh, I thought you meant he kicked it like he's supposed to kick it north. And he
I mean, he may as well. It ended up in the end zone.
All right.
So, yeah, no, definitely a cause for concern. And that's one thing you haven't seen from Indiana. They don't make a ton of mistakes, especially on special teams. They have one of the best long snappers in the country. They don't drop holes. They just don't make stupid mistakes. So even like last week when Quinn Warren almost dropped the punt, for him to pick it back up and get it off is great. But again, to your point, that's playing at home. The crowd's with him. At Kinnick, that crowd's not going to be with them. They're going to be pumped up balls on the ground. So it's a little bit of a different environment. Definitely something to keep an eye on.
All right, before we wrap it up, because Corey and I are off to our Big Ten live show.
Wait, hold on, Mark. Can we speed run this ranking the offensive defense?
Yeah, exactly. So the Indiana offense.
Go ahead, Brad.
9.
9.
Indiana defense.
9.
9.
Indiana special teams.
Probably like a
9.
6.
Okay, so
6.
Wow.
Yeah.
One guy says 9, one guy says 6. That's
Well,
quite a
hold on. I
differential
need
there,
this
Mark.
explanation now, Brad. Why 6? Is it you really that worried about Quinn Warren?
I'm not like worried that we're going to get outplayed. I think we're average and serviceable enough to get the job done on a given day. We do get punt blocks. That's something we're very good at. But Radicic doesn't have the craziest leg. He's limited
That's why I said
in his
9.
range. Backup punter this week. He's been
Yeah,
serviceable, but you
McCarthy
never
McCarthy
know.
was available.
You do
last
have a good
week. He wasn't
return
on the
game, so I'm
injury
actually going to bump it up to 7 just because Johnny Brady's been great at returning punts this
report.
year.
You're not giving Brendan Frank
There we
our
go.
kickoff specialist, Brendan Frankie's hitting the ball
But
out
he
of
does
the end
kick it
zone
in the
at
end zone
like
every time.
95%. I'm not even sure we've had one returned on us this year, which bodes really well, but we'll see which way the wind's blowing.
9, 9, and 7-9 sounds like one of the top 5 teams in the country.
Yeah, it does.
A lot of metrics have him there, so it checks out.
Hey, real quick, Mark, when you said that, Alex was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Top 5. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
the confidence.
We've been
is-
saying, dude, but
I know
I
you've
can
been-
speak so confidently
saying it
because
all
we've been
off
saying the
season,
same
yeah.
thing since we started on the Voice of College Football. And
totally believe you. I totally believe you. But I'm just, the reason I hesitate to first of all, I'm not an Indiana fan, but I hear stuff like that from like our boy Levi Stevenson all off season. But until we actually see the season play out, we don't know. And I'm just like, we've seen part of the season play out, but it's been a very small part of the season.
I'm
Well, I
equating
totally
the 9
believe that.
rating.
I totally believe that these two believe it. That's
I
what I
believe it.
totally
No, I
believe.
agree. I agree. I know they do.
Yeah. I don't
But-
believe. I need to see them beat one really good team.
Well, they
One.
would say that Illinois was really good. Do you?
No.
I think they're a top
I mean,
25
listen,
team.
I think the rankings for those two teams were flipped. I think Indiana should have been 9 and Illinois should have been 19, and nobody's having the
Can we just agree? Like rankings mean absolutely nothing.
nothing. Yes,
Especially
I
when
don't
you're
even
3 weeks in and have played. Like Indiana
Yeah.
shouldn't. Listen, you're gonna make this and make you mad. Indiana should not have been ranked
Thank you.
because they had not beaten anybody.
Hey, we made the top 25 that actually matters this week. Number 16. I want
Well,
some,
and they
put
should
some
now.
respect on
Thank
that.
you.
But I'm saying a
Finally
week ago
checked
they
it
had
out.
no business.
Yeah,
being
I do
ranked.
every week. on
They
the
were
Voice of
not
College
ranked
Football.
prior to that.
Yeah.
16 on TAMS.
Now I'd probably put them, maybe top 15, top 10, maybe. But there's resumes that are, I mean, like nobody has a better win than Ohio State over Texas right now. There's a few other teams that have better win. Indiana won convincingly against a team that's still very unknown at home. We got to see them do it against a team that's slightly more known on the road. So that's
Well, I think Corey, you can say I think Iowa's better than Illinois.
we'll see. I don't even know that we'll.
I'm not sure about that either.
I don't know about
I just
that.
don't know.
We'll see on Saturday. I mean, because even if Iowa outplays Indiana, they're doing it in Kinnick, and there's a huge if Iowa was going to Bloomington right now, I'd probably say Indiana's a 10-point or more favorite. So, yeah.
Or maybe I'll say this: Iowa's going to be a more difficult challenge than Illinois was because they're going on the road.
Sure, 100%. We can agree on that. And if it's not, I mean, if Indiana goes out here and rows the boat to sorry to take up a fleckism, but if they go out and row the boat for a 20 to 30 point win, I'll be the most shocked guy on the planet, my friend. Seriously,
I'll be next to you because I don't think it'll get that crazy.
I don't think it will either.
If they do that, then I'm going to be like, Signetti may not even be there at the end of the year. Like he may be that.
See, and that's the next mistake people make is like you look at what he's doing in Bloomington and everybody just assumes he's going to look and jump ship. Why?
Yeah, I don't know that he's going.
Money's there, the recruiting class is there. Like that is, and you're not. You touched a nerve because I've been defending that narrative for 3-4 days and for almost 12 months now. But it's like. He said it himself. Why would he leave? Look at what Indiana's program is doing and is going to become. Like this is statue stuff he's doing right now. And if he actually does the things we're talking about him doing, then it's like you look around. And it's like he could go be the next Saban. He could go be the next whoever was great at Florida, whoever's a Spur. You know what I'm saying? Like pick a legendary coach, or you can literally be the person who made Indiana football matter. And that is something you literally. Like once Indiana wins another football game and Northwestern loses, I guess you can spin that story and go to Northwestern and turn that program around. But he's taking the worst college football program of all time and making them a national contender. Like that's just insane.
Yeah, I see him as the arrogant asshole that would love a statue at a university, just to be known as the guy that did it. That's how I see Signetti. I don't see him jumping ship for Florida or something like that. I don't see it.
Maybe in 15 years, he'll be surpassing Kirk Ferentz for the all-time Big Ten wins
Whoa.
leadership.
Nope. No.
Knock on
That'd
wood.
be insane. Mark, don't say things like that.
15 years. Wow. He only needs
That'd be
15
crazy.
years.
Let's
to do it.
slow
Coach
your
till
roll,
he's
Mark.
80. He's gonna coach till he's 80. I love it.
There you go. All right. 80's the old 60 or 60's the new 80 or whatever it goes.
Yeah.
All right. It's Alec. It's Brad, the Indiana Live show here at the Voice of College Football, but not right here. You got to go to the Indiana channel at the Voice of College Football, and I will drop that link in the chat before we leave. And then, of course, it's Zach doing the Iowa show Mondays and Thursdays, right, Zach?
Yep, at 6 p.m. Central Time.
All right. Appreciate you guys jumping on board.